The Splendid Isolation, from the March 1899 issue of American Illustrated Methodist Magazine. How is the disciple to be kept in a world like this? How is the Redeemer's prayer, "I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil," to be answered in the disciple's safety? Generally, when we reflect on this matter, we conclude that God saves His children by exercising over them a celestial guardianship, that He entrusts them to a celestial police, that they are sustained by angels' hands lest they dash their foot against a stone. But this is an altogether insufficient explanation. God saves His people from within rather than from without, and it is to this interior divine action that we must look for our salvation. He makes us invincible through the soul. God protects His people from the evil that is in the world by giving them an instinct to peril. Volumes have been written upon the marvelously keen sense of danger with which many of the inferior animals are endowed. But even before we come to animals, vegetable life sometimes displays a curious appreciation of peril and a manifest shrinking from it. In the Guyana forest, when a branch dies and begins to decay, the sensitive aerial roots of the orchid seem to appreciate what is about to happen, and loose their hold. The sensitive points turn away in apparent disgust, the whole plant shrinks from what is poisonous to it, and will rather allow itself to fall into the midst of the thicket below than run the risk of further contamination. Something like a prophetic instinct works in the wonderful flower, making it strangely alive to the danger of the situation. Birds, insects, and animals generally have this prescient sense in a surprising degree of perfection. It is said that the butterflies of India migrate to escape the monsoon. Every year for 1 day, or 2 days at the most, in the beginning of June, all the butterflies of a certain species are seized with a northward tendency. All day long they drift past, but their direction never changes. The natives say that 3 days after the butterflies pass, the monsoon will break. They appear to have a meteorological sense which gives them intimation of low-pressure areas, and that warns them to get up and haste away. When the dreadful catastrophe occurred some years ago in the island of Ischia, prognostications of the coming earthquake were given by various animals. Some time before the shocks were felt, creatures of all kinds were agitated in a wonderful way. It seems as though God had given even to inferior life a prophetic sense. It is not fitted to sudden destruction. Everything and every creature gets mysterious warning, a chance to hide itself in a cleft of the rock. In this exquisite admonitory instinct lies the salvation of the irrational world, for to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Now God gives to all sincere men a similar instinct for moral peril, a sensibility of sin, a pain to feel it near. You do not like a certain man, you have vague prepossessions against him on moral grounds, you do not know exactly why you shrink from him, but the idiom and atmosphere of the man do not satisfy your instinctive sense. Now that ought to be quite enough for you without your being able to give clear reasons to yourself for your antipathy. God has made you a discerner of spirits, and you must respect the subtle warning. You read a certain book, and lay it down with the feeling that you dislike it. When people ask you for the grounds of your dislike, you are a bit at a loss for an answer. You cannot clearly argue the thing out or justify your unfavorable judgment, although your soul revolts. Do not distress yourself because you cannot satisfy those who question you. You know that the reading of the book stained the whiteness of your soul, left ugly images in your imagination, left a nasty taste in your mouth, and this amply justifies you for the future in letting such literature alone. Or, you are persuaded to go to some place of entertainment. You did not wish to go, but these are Catholic days, and so you consented. Your friends ask, "How did you like it?" You reply, "Not at all." Then they wish to know why you disapprove. What did you see, what did you hear, that you object to? Now there was not anything definite in what you saw that you can describe, not anything in what you heard that you can quote, and therefore they charge you with being unreasonable. Not at all, you are not saved by your ability to explain, but by delicate powers of perception and judgment that defy analysis and explanation. The orchid can give no explanation of its shrinking from the tainted branch, the butterfly does not understand its impulse to the northward flight, the animal cannot explain to itself the nervousness which presages the earthquake, but they are perfectly right in their alarm and action. And so are you. A lady in the Bureau of Engraving at Washington told me that when she was appointed to her post she was miserably anxious lest she should permit any spurious banknote to pass undetected. Most painfully did she scrutinize numbers, signs and signatures, until she was pretty nearly consumed by solicitude. At length the senior officer comforted her by saying, "Do not worry. Be careful, and when you have done that be tranquil, for the first time you touch bad paper you will feel a shiver as though you received a cold shower bath. And it is much the same in our moral life. The soul also has a sensibility by which we detect the spurious, the unclean and the dangerous. Ever be watchful and cautious, life has no place for presumption. Scrutinize signs and signatures, but remember at last that you must know the sinister man, the spotted book, the equivocal entertainment, much as that official knows the counterfeit paper, by a subtle touch which defies comprehension. A man's brain is not the widest part of him, he has instincts and perceptions far more profound and infallible than his blundering logic or prudential utilitarianism. Men are not saved by their cleverness, that usually brings them into trouble, they are safeguarded by their sensibility. The bloom on a peach, the naturalist tells us, is of the very first consequences to its life and perpetuation, and the best thing about any of us men and women is the fine bloom on our mind, our conscience, our feeling. It is more effectual for our salvation than walls of granite or gates of brass. And I say to the young people, take care of the delicacy of the mind, keep the power to blush, respect the alarm and shrinking of the soul on the faintest suspicion of evil. Cynical people call you green. Thank God that you are that color, mind that you keep it, it is infinitely better than the sere and yellow leaf of a wasted life. A keen sense of impending danger is the munition of rocks, and you can preserve that sense only by a swift and delicate obedience to its admonitions. Live so purely, so resolutely for your master that your whole moral nature shall continue quick as the apple of an eye, the slightest touch of sin to feel.